Hi, everybody. Today we are going to learn about types of government. So just make sure that you've got your guided notes. And then right in at the top again, the learning target, I can define and compare different types of governments. So let's look first at dictatorships. A dictatorship is basically, one person who rules, and they're known as a dictator. And that one person typically takes power by force, and none of the citizens, nobody in the country can really limit their power. And that is because oftentimes a dictator uses threats to limit those rights and freedoms. Most dictators were or are military leaders who take power suddenly and violently. So if you think of an example, Hitler would be an example of a dictator. Okay, next up we have a monarchy. Now, a monarchy is usually ruled by a king or a queen, but there's two different types. So in your video notes or in your notes, you'll see that there's two different columns. One says absolute. So an absolute monarchy is the kind where you think of the traditional kind of king or a queen who has power. And they're the ones that make all the decisions and have all the power. In that type of monarchy, sorry about this, you guys. There's something called hereditary succession, which just means that family members will take power once the king or queen dies. And typically it would be the oldest male. That's typically how it used to go. But that's what hereditary succession means, that somebody in the family will be taking over power just because they're part of the family when that king or queen dies. Now, the second type is a constitutional monarchy. And the difference there is that, yes, they have a king or a queen, but they also have an elected body, and that elected body makes all of the decisions. A lot of times it's called parliament. You might hear about that in England nowadays or the United Kingdom, but that's what a constitutional monarchy is. All right, so next up, we've got democracy. And again, there's two ways of looking at democracy. First of all, is direct. We in the United States are actually not a direct democracy. What a direct democracy means is that, sorry about that, you guys, is that actually everybody can vote. So when we're talking direct, it means every citizen is needed to vote on every single decision. So if you even think about it from, let's say, a classroom standpoint, every single person, if there's 28 kids in your class, every single person in the class would have to vote and have a vote to make every decision in the classroom. Now, a representative is also known as republic type of democracy, is where citizens vote for leaders to make laws and run the government. And that's what we have in the United States. So citizens are still voting, but what they're voting for is for people to represent them. And then those people who are representatives will make the decisions. So that's what our Congress is. And then if you think of our student council too, our student council members are our representatives, and they're making the decisions about what's going on in the school. Okay, another form of government is an oligarchy. And basically, it's real simple. It's just a form of government in which a small group of people hold most or all of that political power. So you can see here, there's just an image of a few people. It's not just one person, but it's a small group, and they're the ones in power. They're not voted on, it's just they control all the power. And then the last type of government that we're going to look at is a theocracy. Now, a theocracy is different because it is based on religion. And so you'll see that God or a God is recognized as like the ultimate highest leader. And a theocracy is actually run by religious leaders. So it might be one, it might be, more than one religious leader, but what they base their government on is these religious rules, and that's how the country is governed. And then theocracies in general, everybody who lives in a theocracy has to follow whatever the religious law of that country is. So that is a theocracy. All right, so we're going to wrap it up, and I want you to think about this for a minute. We kind of have talked about this before, and you'll notice here are all of the different words that we've talked about and types of government that we've talked about. But where would you put theocracy on this chart? Would you put it under who rules? One person, a few people, all the people? Is it more like a democracy, or maybe more like a dictatorship or an oligarchy? Where would you put it and why? So answer that question. And then what I want you to do is check in your notes and your answer to your question with your teacher, and then you can move on to the next activity.